The reception was radiant with music and laughter when my boss moved closer to me. "Congratulations, Iris," Mr. Alden said, his voice too loud against the soft music. Stretched his hand towards me holding a cream envelope. My name was boldly written in his usual sharp handwriting. "I couldn't miss giving you this personally," he said with a gentle smile. My fingers trembled as I took it. The weight felt wrong. Too light for a card. Around me, guests swayed to the string quartet my mother had insisted on hiring. Tyler stood beside me, his hand warm against my back. I slid my finger under the seal, expecting a check or maybe a gift card. Instead, I pulled out a single sheet of paper. The company letterhead blurred before my eyes. Then the words focused. Notice of termination. Effective immediately. Mr. Alden's signature sat at the bottom, bold and unmistakable. My breath caught somewhere between my lungs and my throat. The paper trembled in my hands as I read it again, hoping I'd misunderstood. I hadn't. It was too real to be a mistake. Tyler leaned over my shoulder. His confusion was evident. "What is that?" he asked. I couldn't utter a word. I could see thousand eyes permanently on me. I became a statue in few seconds. His family stood nearby, champagne glasses frozen halfway to their lips. Whispers rippled across the decorated hall like stones skipping across water. My chest tightened as I looked up at Mr. Alden. He sat at a corner table now. He lifted his champagne glass toward me with a smirk that made my stomach turn. The anger in me doubled. He was enjoying this. The humiliation burned through my veins, hot and sharp. My mother appeared at my elbow. At her gentle touch, I regained a bit of life in me. Her face creased with worry. "Sweetheart, what's wrong?" I couldn't answer. My throat had closed up completely. Tyler took the letter from my shaking hands and read it quickly. His jaw clenched so tight I heard his teeth grind. "He fired you? At our wedding," he managed to mutter. His voice rose below my breath. More heads turned. More eyes added. My maid of honor rushed over, her emerald dress swishing around her ankles. But I smiled faintly, forcing my lips into something that resembled calm. I wouldn't give Alden the satisfaction of seeing me break. After the reception ended, I locked myself in the dressing room at the back of the venue. My phone lit up with messages from co-workers who had just heard the news. Apparently, word traveled fast. My hands shook as I scrolled through the texts. Most were sympathetic. A few were curious. One made me pause. It was from Kelly, my maid of honor. She'd overheard Alden bragging to someone at the bar about finally putting me in my place. The humiliation cut deeper than any knife could. I stared at my reflection in the mirror. My makeup was still perfect. My hair still held its elegant updo. But my eyes looked hollow, like someone had reached inside and scooped out everything that mattered. I sat on the velvet bench and let my head fall into my hands. The wedding dress suddenly felt too heavy. Too tight, too. Tyler knocked softly on the door. "Sweetheart, can I come in?" I wiped my eyes quickly, even though I hadn't cried yet. "Give me a minute, horny," I managed to respond. That night, while everyone celebrated at the after-party my parents had organized, I sat alone in our hotel room. Tyler had gone down to thank the remaining guests, giving me space to process what had just happened. I stared at the termination letter spread across the white bedspread. The termination letter wasn't just corporate. It was personal punishment for turning down his unwanted advances. I smiled, folded the letter neatly. 6 years of my life, dismissed with a single signature. But as I sat there in the quiet darkness, something shifted inside me. The shock began to fade, replaced by something colder and sharper. Clarity. Mr. Alden had wanted to destroy me. He'd chosen the most public, humiliating way possible to do it. But he'd made a mistake. He'd underestimated me. I picked up my phone and opened a new note. At the top I typed, "Strategic response plan." No anger. No tears. Just cold, calculated strategy. If Alden thought this was over, he was wrong. This was just the beginning. I would rebuild myself. And I would make sure his fall was permanent. If he had wanted to play games with my career, I'd play chess with his empire. 3 months back, I was Mr. Alden's senior project manager at Westford Solutions, a mid-sized consulting firm in downtown Portland. I had been the company's golden employee. Overworked, loyal, the woman who built the project that had just landed our biggest client. I'd been there 6 years, working my way up from junior analyst to running half the division. I was loyal. I stayed late. I gave up weekends. I practically ran his team while he took credit at board meetings. The firm had just landed a multi-million-dollar account with Cascade Industries, thanks to a pitch I'd spent 6 weeks perfecting. I'd researched their needs, created custom solutions, and delivered a presentation that had the CEO nodding before I finished. Mr. Alden had barely reviewed it before the meeting. Afterward, he'd shaken my hand in his office. "Excellent work, Iris. A promotion is definitely in your future." I'd believed him. I'd gone home that night and told Tyler we might finally be able to afford a down payment on a house. 2 weeks after landing the Cascade account, Mr. Alden called me into his office late one evening. Most of the floor had emptied out. The janitor pushed his cart past the glass walls as I knocked. "Come in, Iris. Close the door behind you." He poured 2 glasses of expensive whiskey from the bottle he kept in his desk drawer. I rarely drank at work, but he pushed a glass toward me anyway. "To your success," he said, raising his glass. I touched mine to his politely but didn't drink. He leaned back in his leather chair, studying me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "You know, Iris, loyalty is the most important quality in business." I nodded, unsure where he was going. "You've been loyal to me, to this company. I appreciate that." He paused. "But there are different kinds of loyalty. Professional loyalty is good. Personal loyalty is better." Something in his tone made my skin crawl. I set my glass down carefully. "I'm not sure what you mean, sir." Mr. Alden smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I mean that your promotion depends on being the right kind of team player. Someone who understands that what I need is more important than company policy." He stood and walked around his desk, perching on the edge just a few feet from my chair. "Too close." I shifted back slightly. "I've always been a team player, Mr. Alden." My voice came out steadier than I felt. He reached out and touched my shoulder. "I'm sure we can find ways for you to prove that more differently." I stood abruptly, nearly knocking over my chair. "I should get home, sir. Tyler's expecting me." Mr. Alden's expression darkened for just a second. Then his professional mask slid back into place. "Of course. Family first." But as I left his office, I caught the look on his face. Something cold and calculating. From that day forward, everything changed. The warmth he'd shown me disappeared. Our interactions became clipped and formal, and I started to feel like prey being circled by something patient and hungry. Few days after the incidents at his office, I'd discovered that Alden had quietly taken credit for my work, manipulated the board, and planned to replace me with his niece, because I didn't give in for what he'd wanted to do with me. Within a week, I noticed I was being left off email chains I'd always been included on. Projects I'd initiated were suddenly reassigned, without explanation. My workload doubled, with administrative tasks that had nothing to do with my actual job. In meetings, Mr. Alden would talk over me, dismiss my suggestions without discussion. When I presented ideas, he'd nod politely, and then implement them later, as if they'd been his all along. I started saving everything. Every email I sent got copied to my personal account. Every document I created got backed up to a cloud drive Mr. Alden didn't know about. I photographed whiteboard sessions and kept detailed notes of every conversation. Something told me I'd need evidence later. I just didn't know for what yet. My coworkers noticed the shift too. They stopped inviting me to lunch. They'd go quiet when I entered the break room. I overheard 2 analysts whispering about how I'd fallen out of favor and should watch my back. During a team meeting in late April, Mr. Alden presented the Cascade Industries project to the board. I sat in the back of the conference room, watching him click through slides I'd created. Every strategy, every idea, every data point, every recommendation, all came from my research, but he presented it all as his own work. "As you can see," he said, gesturing to a graph showing projected growth. "My approach to client retention focuses on personalized solutions. My approach, my research, my late nights." The board members nodded and took notes. The CEO even stood to shake his hand. My heart pounded so hard, I thought everyone could hear it. But I stayed silent. I stayed calm. Speaking up would accomplish nothing, except making me look petty and desperate. Instead, I pulled out my phone under the table and recorded the rest of his presentation. Evidence. Always evidence. After the meeting, Mr. Alden caught my eye across the room and smiled. A challenge. A dare. He was testing me, waiting to see if I'd fight back. If at all I would fight back. Not now. It must be a calculated fight. The one with strategy. The one I will win. With good margin. In early May, I overheard a conversation that explained everything. I was working late, finishing a report in my cubicle. The office was mostly empty. Voices drifted from the break room, and I recognized Mr. Alden's laugh. "She'll be gone soon anyway," he said. My niece is graduating next month. Smart girl. Business degree from Stanford. She needs a position with real responsibility. Another voice, probably Gerald from accounting, responded. What about Iris? She runs half your projects. Mr. Alden's laugh was cold. Iris is training her replacement. She just doesn't know it yet. My blood turned to ice. Everything clicked into place. The sudden coldness. The reassigned projects. The impossible workload. He wanted me out so his niece could take over my position. And when I'd refused his personal loyalty test, I had sealed my own fate. I sat frozen at my desk, staring at my computer screen without seeing it. 6 years of my life. And I was being pushed out for nepotism. I wanted to scream, to march into his office and quit. But I didn't. I filed the information away and kept working. 2 weeks before my wedding, I submitted my leave request for the ceremony and honeymoon. 2 weeks off. Carefully saved vacation days. Mr. Alden approved it immediately. Too easily. He called me into his office to sign the paperwork. Enjoy your big day, Iris, he said, smiling. Don't worry about work when you get back. His smile was too wide, too friendly. I never mind anyway. I already knew what was to come soon. Thank you, sir. I kept my voice neutral. You've earned it. All those late nights. All that hard work. He leaned back in his chair. Things will be different when you return. New structure. New opportunities. New opportunities for his niece, he meant. But I just nodded. I left his office with the signed leave form. That night, I told Tyler something felt wrong. Maybe I shouldn't take the full 2 weeks. I said as we reviewed seating charts in our apartment. Tyler looked up from his laptop. Babe, you've been planning this wedding for a year. We're talking about our honeymoon. Your boss can survive without you for 2 weeks. I wanted to believe him, but my gut churned with anxiety I couldn't shake. The night before my wedding, I tried to log into my work email from home to forward a few final documents. Access denied. I tried again, thinking I'd mistyped my password. Access denied. I called the IT help desk, but they'd already left for the day. The automated message suggested I contact them Monday morning. My hands shook as I set down my phone. This wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't a technical glitch. This was deliberate. Mr. Alden had revoked my access the night before my wedding, while I was preparing for the most important day of my life. He was erasing me from the company. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at my wedding dress hanging on the closet door. The white fabric seemed to glow in the dim light. Tomorrow was supposed to be perfect. Tomorrow was supposed to be about Tyler and me, and the life we were building together. But Mr. Alden had poisoned it. Even from a distance. He'd found a way to hurt me. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering what Monday would bring. Now I was back at my wedding reception. The termination letter still clutched in Tyler's fist. The realization hit me like cold water. Mr. Alden hadn't just fired me. He'd chosen to deliver the news publicly. Personally. In front of everyone I loved. On the happiest day of my life. This wasn't business. This was revenge. Revenge for rejecting his offer. Revenge for not playing along with his games. Revenge for being good enough at my job that he'd felt threatened. He wanted to break me. To humiliate me. So thoroughly that I'd never recover. To make sure everyone knew that crossing him had consequences. I looked across the reception hall. Mr. Alden was leaving now, straightening his tie as he walked toward the exit. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. He'd delivered his message. But as I watched him disappear through the doors, something inside me hardened. Instead of falling apart, I took a deep breath. I smoothed my wedding dress. I kissed Tyler with strong passion and energy. The one I didn't plan. I told him I was fine. I thanked the remaining guests for coming. I pretended to move on. And that was the moment I decided to destroy him. But with careful and thorough calculated moves. In the days following my wedding, while Tyler and I were supposed to be enjoying our honeymoon in Hawaii, I worked. I sat on the hotel balcony overlooking the ocean, my laptop open, and I started researching. I reached out quietly to former Westford employees, people who'd left under strange circumstances, people who might have stories to tell. The responses came slowly at first, then faster. A former marketing director, who'd been fired after questioning an expense report. An analyst who'd noticed discrepancies in client billing. A junior accountant who'd been let go for performance issues after catching Mr. Alden padding his travel expenses. Each person had a piece of the puzzle, but I needed more than stories. I needed documentation. I needed proof. I needed evidence. Evidence that couldn't be disputed or explained away. I created a secure folder on my cloud drive. Everything I collected went there. Names, dates, amounts, patterns. Tyler found me one afternoon, still in my swimsuit, but hunched over my laptop. "This is supposed to be our honeymoon." His voice was gentle, but concerned. "I know," I said without looking up. "I just need to finish this one thing." On our last day in Hawaii, I received an email from someone named Denise Vaughn. The subject line read, "You should know the truth about Alden." I opened it immediately. Denise had been the senior accountant at Westford 3 years ago. She'd been fired suddenly, supposedly for poor performance. But the real reason, she explained in her careful, detailed email, was that she'd discovered Mr. Alden was misusing client funds. Small amounts at first, a few thousand here and there, buried in expense reports and invoices. Then larger sums, money meant for client projects, mysteriously redirected to consulting fees that never produced any actual consulting work. When Denise had brought her concerns to HR, Mr. Alden had convinced them she was mistaken, then got her fired for whistleblowing without cause. She'd been blacklisted in the industry. No one would hire her. She'd lost her apartment. Her career was gone. Everything to the thin air. But she still had copies of the files, backups she'd made before her access was revoked. She'd kept them for 3 years, hoping someone would eventually listen. I called her immediately. We talked for 2 hours. By the time I hung up, I had a partner, had a plan. It felt like I finally hit it. When Tyler and I returned from Hawaii, I didn't wallow. I didn't hide. I got dressed every morning and started job hunting. Through a friend from college, I got an interview at Pinnacle Consulting, a rival firm that happened to partner with Westford on several large contracts. The interview went well. They were impressed by my portfolio, especially the Cascade Industries pitch. I played it carefully, never mentioning the circumstances of my departure. I simply explained, I was looking for new opportunities and growth. They offered me a position as senior consultant. The salary was way better than Westford had ever paid me. The benefits were excellent. And most importantly, Pinnacle worked closely with Westford on joint projects, which meant I'd have access to some of their systems and files, legally, through proper channels, which is a good fit for my plans. I accepted immediately. I signed a confidentiality agreement, then started 2 weeks later. Mr. Alden had no idea I was now inside his supply chain. He had no idea I could see the invoices and expense reports that flowed between our companies. He thought he'd destroyed me, but I was just getting started. He had no idea what was coming for him. For 3 months, I worked quietly at Pinnacle. I built trust with my new colleagues. I proved my value on legitimate projects. I did everything by the book. No hacking, no stealing, no breaking into systems I shouldn't access. Just patience and careful observation. Westford depended heavily on Pinnacle for technical support and infrastructure. That meant their financial documents crossed my desk regularly. Invoices for services rendered, expense reports for joint projects, billing statements that needed reconciliation. I reviewed every document that came through. Most were legitimate, standard business expenses, fair pricing, normal operations. But occasionally, something didn't add up. An expense report with duplicate charges. An invoice for consulting services that didn't match any actual work performed. Small discrepancies that individually meant nothing, but together they formed a pattern. I documented everything in my secure folder. I cross-referenced dates with the files Denise had given me. Slowly, carefully, I built a timeline of Mr. Alden's fraud. It had been going on for at least 5 years, maybe longer, and it was still happening. No one had ever suspected. He was such a smart person, but a day had been reserved for him. One afternoon in September, I was reviewing a batch of invoices from Westford when something caught my eye. A consulting fee for $15,000, billed to one of our mutual clients. The description was vague, strategic advisory services. But I'd worked on that project. I knew everyone involved. There had been no strategic advisory services anywhere. I pulled up the client file and checked the original scope of work. Nothing about additional consulting. I checked the project timeline. The invoice was dated during a week when the client had been on vacation. Their office had been closed. I felt my pulse quicken. This was it. Clear. Documented fraud. Mr. Alden's signature sat at the bottom of the invoice, authorizing the payment. I made copies of everything. The invoice, the original project scope, the client's vacation schedule, email chains confirming the office closure. I added it all to my folder. Then I kept digging. If he'd done it once, he'd done it more than once. Over the next 2 weeks, I found 6 more fraudulent invoices, all bearing Mr. Alden's signature, all for services that had never been rendered. Together, they totaled over $80,000. Embezzlement, clear and simple. By October, I had everything I needed, documented proof of fraud spanning 5 years. Testimony from former employees who'd been retaliated against for questioning his practices. Financial records showing systematic embezzlement. Emails proving he'd known exactly what he was doing. I organized it all into a single comprehensive report. Every file was clearly labeled. Every claim was backed by documentation. Every timeline was verified and cross-referenced. I drafted an email addressed to the Westford Solutions Board of Directors, the HR department, and the major investors. I attached the full report. I kept the email itself short and professional. Dear board members, I am writing to bring to your attention serious financial irregularities involving one Mr. Alden. Please review the attached documentation. All information can be independently verified. This matter requires immediate investigation. Respectfully, Iris Chun. I saved the email as a draft, but I didn't send it yet. Timing was everything. I'd learned that from Mr. Alden himself. Strike at the moment of maximum impact. Make it impossible for them to ignore or cover up. He had earlier taught me. In early November, I learned through a former colleague that Westford was planning their annual company retreat, a weekend event at a resort in the mountains. There Mr. Alden would announce the upcoming year's promotions and organizational changes. According to my source, Mr. Alden had planned to officially promote his niece to senior project manager. My former position, the position he'd promised me. The retreat was scheduled for Friday, November 15th. The announcement would happen Friday night. During the formal dinner, Mr. Alden would give a speech about the future of the company, about rewarding loyalty and bringing in fresh talent, about building a family culture. I smiled when I heard the date. Perfect timing. I made one final check of my documentation. Everything was complete. Everything was accurate. Everything was devastating. I scheduled the email to send Thursday night at 11 p.m. By Friday morning, the board members would wake up to my report in their inboxes. They'd have all day to review it before Mr. Alden's big speech. His moment of triumph would become his moment of reckoning. Thursday, November 14th. I sat in my home office, my finger hovering over the send button. Tyler stood in the doorway, watching me. Are you sure about this, dear? He asked. I looked at the email one more time. 5 years of fraud, documented in excruciating detail. Testimony from 6 former employees. Bank records, invoices, emails, screenshots. Everything dated, everything verified, everything true. I'm sure, I said. I clicked send. The email disappeared from my drafts folder. No going back now. I closed my laptop and took a deep breath. Tyler crossed the room and pulled me into his arms. Whatever happens next, we'll handle it together. That night, I barely slept. I kept checking my phone, waiting for some sign that the email had been received and read. Nothing. Just silence. But I knew. By morning, everything would change. Mr. Alden's carefully constructed empire was about to collapse. And this time, I wouldn't be the one humiliated. This time, justice would be public. Friday morning, my phone started buzzing before 7 a.m. Text messages from former co-workers. Did you hear what's happening? Alden's being investigated. The board called an emergency meeting. I sat up in bed, heart pounding. It was working. By 10 a.m., the news had spread throughout the company. According to the messages I was receiving, the board had suspended Mr. Alden pending a full investigation. HR was conducting interviews with current and former employees. The company's lawyers were reviewing all financial records from the past 5 years. Mr. Alden's niece had resigned quietly. She'd sent a brief email claiming personal reasons and disappeared without trace. The annual retreat was canceled. The promotion announcements were postponed indefinitely. Mr. Alden's office was locked. Security had been instructed not to let him remove any documents or files. I sat at my kitchen table, reading each update as it came in. Tyler made coffee and set a cup beside me. How does it feel? He asked. I thought about it. About the termination letter at my wedding. About the public humiliation at my wedding reception. About the 6 years of loyalty thrown away like garbage. It feels like justice, I said finally. The following week, the local business news picked up the story. Westford Solutions CEO suspended amid fraud allegations, read the headline. The article was careful with details, citing internal sources and ongoing investigation. But it mentioned embezzlement, falsified invoices, retaliation against whistleblowers. Mr. Alden's name became synonymous with corruption in Portland's business community. His reputation, carefully built over 20 years, crumbled in days. Other clients started asking questions. Had their accounts been affected? Had they been overcharged? The firm's stock price dropped. 3 board members resigned. The investigation expanded. By the end of November, Mr. Alden was formally terminated. Not just suspended, fired, escorted from the building by security. His partnerships dissolved. His consulting contracts were canceled. He was barred from holding executive positions at any firm affiliated with the Regional Business Council. Everything he'd built, gone. I watched it happen from a distance. I never commented publicly. I never confirmed or denied my involvement. I just kept working at Pinnacle, proving my worth through legitimate success. In January, Pinnacle announced a major acquisition. We were purchasing Westford Solutions. The merger would make us the largest consulting firm in the Pacific Northwest. The transition would happen over 6 months. I'd been promoted to Director of Operations. Part of my new role involved managing the Westford integration, which meant I'd be working directly with their remaining staff, which meant I'd be walking through their offices, past my old cubicle, past the conference room, where Mr. Alden had stolen credit for my work, past the office where he'd made his inappropriate offer. The first transition meeting was scheduled for a Friday afternoon. I arrived early as usual, wearing my best suit. My new business cards were crisp in my pocket. When I walked into the building, the receptionist barely recognized me, but the remaining employees did. They whispered as I passed. Some looked guilty, others looked relieved. I set up in the main conference room, then waited for the Westford leadership team. That's when I saw him, Mr. Alden, cleaning out his office. Security stood nearby, supervising. He looked smaller somehow, older, defeated. I felt a bit sorry for his status. Got carried away by emotion. Our eyes met across the hallway. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then I walked toward him. Slowly, deliberately. Security tensed. But I held up my hand. It's fine. I just need a moment. Mr. Alden's face was gray. His expensive suit looked rumpled. His hands shook slightly as he held a cardboard box filled with personal items. I stopped a few feet away, close enough to speak quietly, far enough to maintain my professional distance. I reached into my pocket and pulled out one of my new business cards. Director of Operations, Pinnacle Consulting. I held it out to him. He took it automatically, his eyes scanning the title. Remember that letter you gave me? I said quietly. My voice was steady, calm. The one you delivered at my wedding? He couldn't meet my eyes. Consider this my reply. I turned and walked away. No anger in my voice. No gloating. No need for either. Justice had written itself. Karma had delivered the blow. Behind me, I heard the cardboard box hit the floor. But I didn't look back. I walked into the conference room, closed the door and got back to work. Because while revenge might be sweet, success is sweeter. And I had a company to run, a new life to enjoy, a victory to celebrate, a justice well-deserved. Have you ever had to draw a line with a boss to protect your peace, your dignity and reputation? I discovered that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is to set boundaries. What would you have done differently if you were in my shoes? Share your thoughts below.